No.
I want to click it.
Did it even start?
This would be Tuesday, May 26th, fourth period regular class as we get into my first day of talking with you guys.
Yay!
See, to cover information with you, I have like 5 days of information I'm going to try and pack into 2 days, so I'm going to try and cut my rambling down as much as possible. It gets a little tough on me because I have trouble with these speeches. Most of it is because leading up till Thursday, because I have to deal with these things called emotions, which I've heard other people talk about, which I'm not used to. But I get to put off emotions for a couple days. Because I get to talk about myself, and I have no emotion when it comes to that. To start off with, I didn't used to do speeches at the end of the year, as far as me doing talks with you guys. I used to do movies just like every other teacher does. And to just give you a heads up on why teachers show movies at the end of the year, there's 2 reasons for it. One, you guys are flipping insane towards the end of the year, and the less that teachers have to deal with you, the less likely it is that they're going to stab one of you with a sharpened ruler. So having you guys watch something gives you a better chance of surviving to the last day. But the other big reason why teachers usually do it is because we have piles of paperwork that we have to do at the end of the year, all that background teacher stuff that's really, really boring. And so by doing that, by showing a movie, it allows the teachers to get that done during the school day. And that's what I used to do also. And then a few years into my teaching career, something weird happened, at least weird according to me. I had an 8th grader come back to talk to me after school. I was hanging out in my room doing something, and the 8th grader came back and was like, "Hey, are you busy?" And I'm like, "I'm just doing teacher stuff." And they just sat down and started talking to me about like how things were going in 8th grade, their life and stuff like that. And it confused me because I never had an 8th grader come back to talk to me. And I never did that when I was in school. The idea of going back and talking to a teacher when I was in junior high is astounding because I didn't like my junior high teachers. I had 2 that I enjoyed, but not like to go back and talk to. There was like ones I hated less than the other ones. And then when I got to high school, I had 1 teacher that I enjoyed throughout most of high school, but not like go back and talk to him. So the idea that this 8th grader would come back and talk to me was weird. I remember telling my 7th graders about it too, like, this weird thing happened yesterday after school. Like, what happened? Like, an 8th grader came back and talked to me. They're like, why? I'm like, I don't know. And so then it started happening more, and I had other 8th graders come back to talk to me. And then a couple years later, I had a high schooler who would come back and talk to me, which was really weird because they don't even go to the same school. And they just popped in my room after school one day, and they were kind of like, "Hey, can I come in and talk?" I'm like, "Sure." And they would come in and just chat, which for me as a teacher and as a person was weird. Not in a bad way. There's just nothing I'd ever experienced. So I would ask them, so why did you come back to talk to me? And I found out a lot about my teaching and what I do. And that's part of what I'm going to talk about with you guys on Thursday. So I have to hold off on that story. But a lot of times they'd come back to talk to me and tell me about their lives. And oftentimes it was after they'd made poor choices. Either the fact they'd gotten arrested for something, or I've had girls who've gotten pregnant while in high school, or I've had kids who get in trouble with their parents and get kicked out of the house or get suspended for something. And for whatever reason, they'd come back and talk to me and relate their stories. And oftentimes, to try and help them, I would tell them stories about my life. And I would tell them about the times I screwed up and the fact that I'm a pretty happy person now. I like my life. I like where it's going. I like who I am. But my life wasn't always like this. I've gone through hardship. I've done the bad things. I come from a life of my parents and grandparents and family having drug addiction, and the fact of growing up with alcoholic parents and growing up with family members who go to jail. Been there, done that. My life was not a normal one, which you guys would consider that. And part was the fact that I've been arrested multiple times when I was younger. I made poor choices, but they didn't ruin my life. I managed to overcome all of those poor choices. I managed to overcome all the hardships that I had to grow up with and not coming from a perfect family, and still come out to be an okay person. And I would tell these 8th graders and these high schoolers when they come back, those were the stories I would tell them. And over the years, they convinced me I should tell those stories to my 7th graders. And I finally agreed when I began to realize something. And part of what I began to realize is 7th grade, to quote from The Outsiders, this is your last year to be golden. Because things are going to change this summer, and things are going to change next year. And whether you like it or not, it's just the way life is. what's going to happen is, for many of you, you can't necessarily name or know a kid for sure that you've seen do drugs or drink. You know it's out there, you know it exists, but you've not had to face it and been there and see it happen. That's good. You're in a happy place. By the time you graduate 8th grade, by the time you leave this building, that'll be different. Every single one of you will know someone by the time you leave 8th grade here. It's just the way it happens. I've yet to have an 8th grader leave this school and say, Mr. Brovicast, you are wrong. I got through both years and I don't know a single person. Every kid comes back to me and says, I don't know how you knew it, but that's what happens. It just is. It's because it's the way culture is. You are going to know someone who has gone down that path. By the time you get to high school, by the time you get to the middle of your freshman year of high school, so Christmas of your high school year, it'll be a kid that you know personally. Not just an acquaintance, not just a kid from class. It'll be maybe not a close friend, but it will be somebody that you know who has gone down that path. By the time you graduate high school, and this comes from talking to those kids who invite me to their open houses, when I talk to my seniors, by the time you graduate high school, it'll be a friend of yours. And maybe not your best friend, maybe not your BFF, but it will be someone who you considered a close friend when you were in junior high. Someone who this year you consider to be in that really close friend group will have gone down that path. And if you don't know the friend, there's a good chance it's you that's gone down that path. And it's what's going to happen. So what I've realized is, this is my last chance to have an influence on you. This is my last chance to have an impact on you as people. Because my whole goal this year was to make you a better person. English was secondary. I wanted to try and send you out into the world as prepared as possible to be a good person so that you can reach that level of happiness. So I used this week to use my life to try and make you a better person, to tell you these stories. Because I've also realized that a lot of teachers try to present themselves as perfect beings. The fact that they can do no wrong, and the fact that they are the perfect examples of what people should be. And that's not true. Humans, teachers are human. We screw up. I'm very human. And the other thing is, your parents, for too many of you, treat you like you're little kids. And you're not anymore. You maybe were a few years ago when you were in intermediate school. For some of you, you were at the beginning of 7th grade. But as you go from 7th to 8th grade, you're not anymore. And treating you that way is doing you a disservice. Because if we treat you like little kids, you're not presented with little kid choices anymore. The things you have coming up in the next year are not little kid things anymore. So you have to be prepared to make those choices. So what I want to do is prepare you for when you get presented with those poor choices. You're going to screw up. Every person screws up. It's part of life. Sometime in the next 5 years, between now and the time you graduate, you are going to do something that makes you feel like you have ruined your life. You're going to do something that makes you feel like it's over, and this is the end, and you're done. You're going to do that thing that's going to get you, you're going to get caught cheating, and you're not going to be able to finish a class, and that's going to affect your graduation. You're going to get caught stealing from a store. You're going to get caught with drugs on you. You're going to do something where your friends all turn against you and no one will talk to you. You're going to do something where your parents know you've done something wrong and you're afraid they're never going to talk to you again. It's part of life. You're going to do something. Screwing up is okay. The big thing is, how do you react when you make those mistakes? How do you recover in your life? So what I want to do is tell you 3 stories from my life of those moments when I thought I had screwed up and could not recover, and the fact that I was able to recover from them. It serves 2 purposes for me. 1, I want you to see that I'm not perfect, and I don't try to pretend that I am perfect in any way. I'm far from perfect. What I am is someone who has learned from his mistakes. And I also want you to see that these choices I've made so that you can learn from them, so that you don't make the same mistakes I made. I give you guys a hard time about being a slow kid and putting you in the slow kid alley at times. Making mistakes is fine. I have no problem with you making mistakes. The issues come in when you keep making the same mistakes and you don't learn from them. If you keep making the same poor choice and you keep making that same poor choice over and over again, that's where problems come in. That's when I start to worry. So what I want to do is give you guys those stories real quick. Before I forget. Behind Miss Doyle, who just came in. I have my yearbook, and I meant to tell you this, guys, ahead of time, but I forgot. If you still have over 100 B points, you can sign my yearbook today. I'll also have it tomorrow. If you have over 50 B points, it's open to you tomorrow, and then I open up to everyone on Thursday as far as signing my book or my yearbook goes. My only requests: one, don't walk in front of the camera. Two, don't write really big. I mean, you can write a lot. I have kids who write half a page and write me a note. That's fine, absolutely. I read every single thing that gets written in my notebook or my yearbook. Just don't write big goodbye in big letters because that wastes my paper. And then two, don't write over people's pictures because that's rude. So don't write over their pictures. And then I think that's it. And then if you want to, you just go over there and then sign it, and that's fine. If not, then you can wait till Thursday when I open up to everyone. If you go to the yearbook dance on Wednesday, I will sign people's there, and you can sign it also if you want to. The only problem with the yearbook dance is 8th graders get cutsies because 8th graders are leaving my building, so I always have the 8th graders cut in front of 7th graders, so keep that in mind. And the next year, when you guys are 8th graders, you get cutsies too, and then that's fine with me. I will also happily sign your yearbook too, if you want. The only problem with me signing your yearbook is I write you a note. Every kid that I sign a yearbook for, I write you a note that connects and why you were in my class, which takes me a little bit of time to do. So if we do it at the yearbook dance, I can do it there, but if you want me to do it this week, like on Thursday or Friday, I have to take your yearbook home because I have to have time to write in it, and I'll bring it back to you the next day. Unless you just want me to sign my name. If you're like, Mr. Brovicast, I don't care about your words, that's fine. I can just put my name in there and that's it. But if you actually want me to sign it, I have to take it home and I bring it back to you the next day, but that's fine for me. But for those of you who have points, if you want to sign it over there, and then Miss Doyle, you're also welcome to. I have a pen and I have the highlighter, not highlighter markers, thin tip Sharpies. You're welcome to use those, or if you have your own pen, that's fine too. I just remembered that. Okay, back to me talking. All right. Here are the 3 stories I want to get to. The 3 times, I mean, I have, used to be before we had screwy schedules, I would spend a whole, like, a week going into all of these stories and tell you guys all kinds of fun things about me screwing up as far as things go, but we're going to focus on the big ones, my 3 arrests, because those seem to be the stories that kids really like. And then on Friday, you guys get a bonus story, because I don't have 1st and 7th, and I have you guys for a shorter class period. You guys get, I'll give you a couple options for your bonus story, and you get to choose what you want for the throw-in. The first time I got arrested, technically I was not arrested because I was too young to be arrested, because I started when I was 7 years old. I was a smart kid, and I didn't want to waste time, so I went ahead and jumped right into my poor choices right there at the beginning. But it was definitely breaking the law. The cops were definitely involved, and there were definitely tears. So I was 7 years old, and I was hanging out with my younger brother, who's 2 years younger than me. And we also hung out with a kid that was a 4th grader. Who was much older than us, because I was 1st grade or so, and he was 4th grade, so when you're in 1st grade, 4th graders seem like really old kids. And so he hung out with us, and he was a bad influence. Not a bad kid, he just came up with bad ideas, and we thought they were really fun ideas. And we would ride our bikes between each other's houses. This particular day, we were riding bikes between our 2 houses, you have a seat over there, and as we were going back and forth between the 2 houses, we saw there was an empty house between our 2 houses. I don't know if they were doing construction on it or if it was in the process of being sold, but for whatever reason, there was an empty house between the 2 of us. And as we were going back and forth, the 4th grader had the idea of, let's go and see if we can get into the house and make it like into a play fort, because that would be awesome. We're like, yeah, that sounds cool. So we went up to it and tried all the doors, but the doors were locked. We looked in the windows, we see the whole house was empty, and we really wanted to get inside. So we tried all the windows, couldn't get in that way. Went around to the back of the house, and there was a big fence. I remember big, this tall, the fence seemed gigantic, but being the brave young souls that we were, it had a electrical box, those big like green metal boxes in the yard. That was in the backyard. I remember we could jump on that, and then we could jump onto the fence. Like, we'd grab onto it, and then we could scrabble up it and go over the fence and get in the backyard, open it up to the gate. We went in there, and it had a big sliding glass door, and that was locked too. So we're like, we couldn't find a way in. So as we were leaving and heading out, we saw a window that we hadn't tried yet, because this window was in the ground. This was called an egress window. If you have a house with a basement there, or where they have crawl spaces, it's the windows that in case the house catches on fire and you're in the basement, you don't die, you can crawl out of it. And so because of that, it was a little bit, but this window was small. It was smaller than the top of your desk. It was like that wide, but then like only that tall, and like this little half window would slide back and forth, because it was a crawl space. And the crawl space is just this empty area between the house and the ground. It's like dirt, stuff like that, so they can do like electrical work. And so we saw it had the little silver half thing that goes around that separates it. And so we were looking at it there, and the fourth grader could not get into it because he was too big. He's like, rawr, and he couldn't get into it. Like, that's not going to happen. I just put it on my desk here. And so we looked at my younger brother, and we're like, hey, let's make my brother do it. So we're like, hey, you should go in there. And he goes, that's not happening because he was scared. So we made fun of him, because that's what you do with younger siblings. You make fun of them. And we bullied him, and it did no good. He was like, oh, no, it's not going to happen. So then they both looked at me. And the problem was, I was a young, dorky child and not athletic. So because of that, there was not much fat on my bones. I was pretty much half twig and half stick. And so I was all skinny little twiggy bits. And it's like, well, you could go in there. And I was like, but I don't want to go in there because it's scary. So then they made fun of me, and I buckled to peer pressure, like any man does. And so I went ahead and was like, all right, I'm going to try it. But I was pretty sure there were spiders down there, and I had a hint that there was a good chance there were scorpions. Even though we don't have scorpions in Indiana, I thought for sure they'd shipped them in just to put them underneath this house because it looked that scary. And so I remember I twigged over it, twiggy, 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 and I slid the little window, and I got underneath it, and it was really dark, and we had not planned to have flashlights, and so I was really scared. But I remember going forward like, I'm a man, and I remember trying to go forward, the darkness was everywhere, and the dirt, and there was just little bits of cobwebs going like across my face and stuff like that, and it was all horrible. And, can you see anything? And I'm like, I can't see anything except around the edges of the house. There was like light coming in from just like little bits around the edges of it. And I couldn't see anything. I was like, I don't see anywhere to go because there was just a ceiling above me, which was the floor of the house. And then dirt, and then just cobwebs. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a light just shines down in the middle of this darkness. Oh, and like sunlight just comes like in this beam. And I'm like, I see something. They're like, go for it. I'm like, I'm going. And we're just going back, I'm a man, 7-year-old man. And just like going for it. And I remember calling over to it, and I got to wherever this beam was, and it was coming down through a hole in my ceiling or the roof of the house. And I remember standing up, like coming up through this little hole area and looking around, and there's this huge white metal round tank on one side, and this huge square boxy humming machine on the other side. And now I know it's a utility closet. It was like the water heater and like the furnace, and then that area, and then the door to it wasn't like a normal one. We have like a door handle. It's like all solid. It had slats in it, and like you push in the middle, and the door would like close like that. And so apparently sun had come through a window and gone through there and like saw it shine onto the ground. And it was like I was being beckoned into the house. And I remember like I could stand up, I could get into this little area. I could go between the two of them. And I remember the water heater being hot. I was like, tummy. I was like, went between that and the heater, and I pushed open the little door, and I snapped over to that way. And I stepped into the house, and the front door was to my left. There was a big open room in front of me. I was in a little hallway. Kitchen was over here to the right, and the sliding glass door was there. And my younger brother and the fourth grader both like smashed their windows like right up against the sliding glass door. And I was like, we're in! So I went over there, like opened the door, threw it, and came in like high five. Like, woo! We're all excited. And like dorky little children, we ran around the house. Pretty much just played tag. Just ran around the whole time. Wee! Having a good time. The house was empty. There was like construction places, but we weren't stupid enough to play with construction tools, right? I only have like 4 fingers. But we just sort of ran around and played, stuff like that. Closed everything back up, and then left the house. Next day, came back again. This time, brought a sack lunch with us, so we had a little picnic there. And so we played there again, had a little picnic, things were good. Did this for several days in a row. Bringing our sack lunches, leaving a little mess there, tried to clean up as best we could, but, we were children. 3 or 4 days in, I remember this. We'd been there several days, and we no longer brought our bikes with us because we didn't want to leave evidence. And we never went in the front door because we figured if you went in the front door, the neighbors would see you. And even at 7 years old, I knew that if there were witnesses to a crime, you had to kill them. And I didn't want to kill people at that young of an age, so I was being smart. And so you don't want to leave your bikes there because evidence, witnesses, killing people again. So we'd always just come around the back and come in that way, and I'd always crawl the little crawl space and then pop up again. And so I remember being in the house, and we were in the kitchen area. I remember as you front door of the house, front room here, room over here, little hallway, stairs went up. And then the room I came out of was like right below the stairs. Kitchen was here, and like a dining room over here. But you could like walk all around, like we could run circles around it and go up the stairs and run circles up there. We were in the kitchen. I don't remember what we were doing. I remember being there and all of a sudden hearing the front door. And hearing someone at the front door. And hearing the whole like someone at the door, and like hearing this deep voice, and just in the whole, oh crap, and like not knowing what to do, like looking like we all just ran this direction, which went into this little dining room area, and we put our backs up against the wall, because where our wall was, the kitchen was behind, so I remember the three of us went up against this wall, kitchen was right behind us here, and there's this front room here, and then the front door, but you couldn't see us from the front door. And my little brother, it was me, and then it was the fourth grader, and we're all just standing against it, and I hear the front door come open, and some guy coming in, stomp, 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 like carrying something heavy, and like cursing, I was like, why is this door open? And he, remember, he shut the little popping door, and he's like, oh, they've been in here again. It's like that. In my head, all I remember hearing was like, fee, fi, fo, fum. Like, I'm going to eat you. I was pretty sure, that being 7 years old, that being caught in the house meant that he was legally allowed to kill us. So I was expecting to die at any moment. I figured since he catches us, he's just allowed to kill us, maybe even eat us if that's what he's in the mood for. And so I was not a smart little 7-year-old. And so I remember sitting there, and he comes in and sets something down. And we're like looking at my brother, and he's like, I don't want to die. Look at the brother, he's like, you're going to die first. No, and I'm trying to figure out what to do while we're standing there. He's like, ah. And then we know, like, because from where I am, he would have been like where Toddy is, like that far away from where we are around this wall. And we can just hear him like right there, like, nothing's good, good. And then all three of us at the same time apparently had the same idea.
Right.
We screamed. Ah! It's like, ah! All three of us. And then ran for the front door. Being an adult and looking back on this, if I'd been in that house and thought it was empty and set something down, and all of a sudden 3 small goblins screamed mere feet from me, I would have just tinkled myself and fallen down. I don't know how this guy kept himself together, but he did. So the three of us go running towards the front door. We get to the front door, and it would not open. And I know when you watch horror movies and you see the person running from the monster and they're trying to open the door and they can't open the door, and you're like, what kind of idiot can't open a door? I'm going to tell you right now, when you think there's something behind you that's getting ready to kill you, doors become the most challenging thing in the world. I remember being 7 years old, like, I've been opening doors for like 3 years now. I'm an expert doorist. I know how these things work. You twist it, it would not. I'm like twisting like this. My brother's like pounding on the door next to me, and the brother was like, hurry up. I'm like, I know how doors work. And it would not open, and finally it opened. I'm like, ha ha. And I open it, and it hit my feet, and it slammed back shut. Like, boom, like, ha, bah! And like, all of this in just a split second, screaming the entire time. And all of a sudden, like, oh, twist door, step to the side, door. Got it. And then we open the door, and then all three of us boom, 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 running out the front door. Being the geniuses that we are, we all run to our houses. Fourth grader out the door, goes to the right. My brother and I out the front door, we go to the left. Me, being smarter than my younger brother, I run across the grass. I immediately pop out and take off running. My younger brother, who is smaller, he was like safety first, ran down the driveway to the sidewalk and then ran along because, you know, you gotta stay where it's safe. And so I remember we're running, and I can still look back and think now how incredibly fast I was. I remember just thinking like, grass, 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 tree, grass, grass, bush, grass, 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 tree. Like, I'm running so fast, he's never gonna catch me. And looking back, I'm like, how's he catch me? Because the guy had come out the door, and instead of falling down and tinkling himself, he chose to chase us. And of the three of us, he decided to chase me. Once again, looking back on this as an adult, pretty sure he probably caught me like 9 or 10 feet out the front door. I think it was like step, 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 grab. But I remember just like running like, he's never gonna get, he's getting close. How is that humanly possible? And just like he was never, but he did. And I remember he grabbed me and just like, like the whole body going backwards, like my feet coming forward. And my brother, who's running over here, turning to look at me. And I remember turning to look at him. We had that brother bond contact, and I'm like, keep running. He's like, I'm not stopping. And he just kept going. So I'm pretty sure that I was going to die at this time. Like, this is the last time. I was like, tell mom and dad I love him. And he was like, whatever, we're going to forget you. And so he just kept on going. And the guy turned me around. Now, and this, once again, in my mind, I'm going to die at any moment. So his question is, who are you? My response is, ah! And he goes, why were you in my house? I follow up with, ah! And I scream at everything he says, and I'm like, you're going to kill me, you're going to kill me, you're going to kill me. Once again, looking at this as an adult, imagine we have a house, fairly empty. 3 small children come running out of a house, screaming. Large man chases small children, grabs one child, drags screaming child back in the house. Neighbors? It's all okay. Nowadays, I don't foresee it going the same path. That's pretty much what happened. Grabs me screaming, drags me back into the house. I'm pretty sure to kill me, but he apparently doesn't. While I'm in there, he's like, I'm going to call the police. I'm like, so they can watch you kill me? And he's like, child, I'm not going to kill you. And I remember he sat me on the stairs, opened the front door, sat me down on the stairs. I remember him calling the police from behind me to my right, because I was on the stairs, probably just crying and holding on to like the little stairwell poles and like that. And I don't remember much until the police showed up. I remember the cops showing up and them like ringing the doorbell, and it comes inside. And thanks, you guys have a seat in those two right there. They come inside, and I remember them like talking to him, like, you have, like I said, you're gonna sit right there. Report, like, I have a report of a breaking and entering. The guy was like, yeah. And it was like, where's the intruder? And I remember him like pointing to me, and the policeman like looking around him at me, coming back, looking at each other, looking at me again, like, behind the small child. And he was like, no, it is the small child. I remember thinking like, who's this guy right here? And I don't remember much from there, so I remember being in the police car. And I remember it was a tough call, because being in the police car was really exciting, because I was 7, and really scary, because I was pretty sure my parents were going to kill me since this guy didn't. So I was like, really exciting and really scary. And I remember getting out of the police car, and I didn't have the handcuffs on, because I was 7 years old. They would not have fit. So ka-chink, it would have slid right off. But I do remember them walking me up to the front door. I had a policeman on either side behind me, going up to the front door and like banging on the door, and my mom answering it. I don't remember exactly what she said. I remember there was probably some tears and some yelling. And he's like, you're such a good kid. I'm like, I used to be. And then they had to go get my brother, because being a good kid, my brother did what any good kid would do. He ran upstairs and hid underneath the bed. And I remember them having to like drag him out. I was like, ah! And they dragged him out. And then being the good criminal I was, I immediately ratted out the 4th grader. And I'm like, yeah, his name is this, blah, 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 let's right over the house. And so they ratted him out. So they went and grabbed him and brought him over also. And then sat him down, and the police talked to us. And like, you realize what you did was breaking the law. And I'm like, well, that now. I was like, we could arrest you and take you to jail if we wanted to. I don't think they could actually do that. But I was like, oh, you could have eaten me also. I understand completely. He was like, now it's going to go on your permanent record. It didn't go on my permanent record. And stuff like that. But it scared me and had an impact. And I knew it was wrong at the time, but it was so much fun. And it scared me enough that I didn't get arrested again for 7 more years. So that was my first one that wasn't a full-out arrest. And that one is my easiest one, because that wasn't really doing something wrong. I mean, okay, now that I'm going into a new house, if I found small children in my house, I'd probably kill them and eat them too. But as far as real breaking the law goes, that wasn't too bad. The next time I get arrested, it was bad. I mean, I was making poor choices. Fast forward to the end of my 8th grade year. Towards the spring of my 8th grade year, I started making a poor choice. I started shoplifting. There's no other way to put it. I would go into stores and I would steal stuff. And I knew it was wrong, and I did it anyway. And I would steal, now being the fact that I was still dorky, I would steal candy and I would steal comic books. And I stole both of those on a regular basis. And it started into my 8th grade year. Some of the kids I was hanging out with who, I can't blame them for being bad influences. It was all me. I heard about other kids doing it, tried it myself. I was, I hate to say good at it, but good enough to get away with it. And so I did that all throughout the summer between 7th and 8th grade. Did it through, the summer between 8th grade and my freshman year. And did it at the beginning of my freshman year. And I joined the wrestling team my freshman year. And so this would have been late October, beginning of November. I knew it was far enough in that wrestling season had started, and I was wearing a jacket on this day, because it was kind of chilly out. And so it was beginning of my freshman year. Nowadays, whenever you guys have sports and you get to stay after school, the coaches will keep you like in their room like that, or say come back to school. When you're in high school, they just say, you're gone, be back here at 4:15 to ride the bus, go